Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and today we have our monthly check-in with Footers Catering, Anthony Lambatos. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing fantastic. It's always a pleasure to be here and excited for a great conversation today.
Yes, always exciting to have you on.
Thank you.
And speaking of which, you have had a crazy month this last month since the last time you were on with us, so tell me all about it.
It sure has been. We're very fortunate. I know last month we talked about the being a finalist for the ICC Best Companies to Work For, and we did win that award
Yay!
for the small business category. So it was awesome.
Yeah.
We had 24 of our team members there to accept the award, and it was a great celebration for them, and just a huge honor. Yeah, you know, I said it as we accepted the award. It really is about our team embracing this idea that, you know, work doesn't have to suck, and we want to make it fun, and doing really awesome things. So feel very, very honored to win that award.
That's awesome. I just imagine you guys that it's like the Academy Awards, because I watched your video that you make and you all run up on the stage and you're like, thank you to all the little people.
They sent an email and they said, you know, if you win, you'll have 1 minute and you can bring up one representative from your company to accept the award. And I was like, no. We don't bring one person up. This is not about me or April. This is about the team. Like, we're all going up to accept this award. So we kind of broke the rules, but
Yeah,
I think they survived.
Yeah, did you all have your 1 minute speech memorized and said it all together?
No, I spoke on behalf of everybody, and I kept that brief, but it was cool, and just, yeah, our team took a lot of pride in that. So.
Yeah, wonderful. You also had a really, really cool thing. I think this is probably my favorite thing that you do for your team. You had your work vacation, your family work vacation, which is amazing.
The annual Footers vacation, yes, was the first part of November. So it was. It's always a fun thing. This is a tradition that started 4 years ago when a couple of our team members came to April and I and said, will you organize a vacation for us? And I was like, what are you talking about? A vacation? Like,
you already work with me.
And she's like, no, we'll pay for it. We just want you to organize it so we can all do it together because we think that would be fun. And I said, seriously, like, we don't spend enough time together. You really want a vacation together? And like, yeah, we think it would be awesome. So we put together a fun trip. The first trip went to Cabo. We got a ridiculous deal on it, and April and I kind of said, if people are this willing to go on vacation, we're willing to subsidize it and make it kind of a partial company trip. So that tradition started 4 years ago, and this year we just got back from Isla Mujeres, Mexico, just outside of Cancun. We had 35 people go this year, so it really has ballooned. But it's just, it's so much fun, and I always talk about the organic team building that takes place that you can't replicate in a normal work setting. When, you know, you're there by the pool, and you've got culinary team members that are talking to sales team members and getting to know them on a personal level and what's important to them. That's really, really powerful, and something that we've found a lot of value in, and we're just, again, fortunate that our team appreciates that as well. But it was a lot of fun. We curated a whole day of a golf cart tour around the island, so we had a train of 9 golf carts cruising around the island, and really a lot of fun, and the kind of rejuvenation we needed before we kick into high gear here for the holiday season, right after Thanksgiving. So
yes, which this season's going to be all over the place for you, I'm sure.
It's shaping up to be our best December ever. I think we'll do over 100 events, and most of those are in the first 3 weeks of the month, and we have some really, really great events that are, 800 people, 1,000 people parties that we're doing. So we're gearing up for it, and we get a little break this week for Thanksgiving, and then December 1 hits, and we'll be ready to go.
Right on it again. Well, I like to think of December as time to give back, right? Yes, we have a lot of holiday parties and things like that, but it is a season of giving, and so one of our favorite things that we like to do on the Connect and Collaborate program is feature nonprofit organizations in December. That's going to be one of our weeks. But your guest today is from a nonprofit organization.
I got to jump early on that. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a true honor to have Sav here in today. I got a chance to meet him. It was a few years ago that we got a chance to meet through his organization that he's now the CEO of, and what you've done to grow it is incredible. Minds Matter is the organization, phenomenal. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but more impressive than just that is the story of our guest today. So it's my pleasure to welcome Savinay Chandrasekhar.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right.
Yes, I always struggle with your last
I
name.
do too, man. I haven't forgiven my parents for giving it to me. So.
Hey, but it makes you unique. So we are so happy to have you. Thank you for being my guest
Pleasure
today,
to be here.
Sav.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks very much.
All right, so let's jump in. Let's talk a little bit about Minds Matter for those people that don't know what Minds Matter is. Fill us in.
Yeah. So Minds Matter is a mentoring organization. It's an after-school program, just like there are many incredible mentoring organizations out there. Where we focus is we work with high-achieving, low-income high school kids. So these are kids who are academically on track to go into college. They should be, at least as of ninth grade. But probably won't get there because of the non-academic barriers, obstacles, hurdles that they gotta clear. And so we work with the best and the brightest of the students who are coming from these low-income communities, and we give them three things. We give them mentors, like your wife, Anthony. April was a mentor, so not one but two mentors that stay with the students for 3 years,
Which I love.
10th, 11th, 12th grade. It's this like long-term relationship where you really get to understand the student really deeply and build that relationship, and it goes beyond just a cursory check-in, right?
And having the two, I know, when April went through it, it just really alleviated some of the stress on
Totally.
her to have to be there every week. She wanted to be,
Yeah.
but there's just naturally sometimes where you're out of town, you have something else going on, and so to have somebody else there that can fill in, that you can work with, and if you're both there, that's great. But I think that's a great model.
Yeah, so it's very intentional for that reason, to have like a little bit of backup, right? So the way we have it structured now is it's a little bit different than when April did it. Is 2 mentors and 2 mentees, so that's
Okay.
4 of them together.
Great.
So each student is getting some peer support, right, from someone who's going through the program at the same time, but then also 2 different adults, right? And so if an adult has to travel, or if they have a family emergency, or if they're sick, there's still coverage. The other really incredible value there is you have 2 different personalities, 2 different styles, 2 different careers, 2 different backgrounds, 2 different
Right.
areas of expertise, right? So you might have someone who's running a business, and you might have someone who's an engineer or a lawyer and an artist. And so getting those different perspectives is super valuable for our students because, as we talked about before we got on air, about 70-80% of our students will be the first in their family to go to college. And so just having exposure to what different careers and professions can look like can be super valuable.
Yeah.
And the great thing about our mentors is these are adults. Like for many of our students, they don't have adults in their lives who aren't authority figures, right? Family members, teachers, principals, but they don't have a lot of adults necessarily. Besides, even coaches are authority figures. People at church or in the community are probably authority figures. But just someone who's an adult who's done this before, who can't tell you anything and can't
Right.
do anything to force you to do anything you don't want to do, but are just there because they care about you and are committed to your success, is a pretty remarkable thing that many of us might have taken for granted. Having mentors growing up,
Right.
even in careers, like we have mentors, right? But
And positive examples of people doing different things in the work world. That it, one of the things I noticed, and I've talked to a couple of the mentees, it makes it tangible, right? I mean, for a lot of kids in that situation, that's so far removed from what is in their circle of understanding, and so when they meet somebody that's in technology or in catering or in some different field, they understand. It makes it more tangible and like, oh, okay, that's a possibility for me.
Yeah, you might have heard the phrase, "You can't be what you can't see." Right?
Yes.
And if you're coming from communities where they don't have a lot of people who've gone to college or don't necessarily have a lot of people who have white-collar careers or long-term professional careers, just that exposure can be so powerful. But it's not exposure of like, we're doing a career panel and you talk to this person for one day and then you never talk to them again. This is like 3 years, every Monday night during the school year, once a week, building this really deep relationship and getting a deep understanding of what that looks like. It's pretty incredible.
Cool. All right, so I interrupted you. You said you were saying 3 things that you give the students: mentors.
So the first is multiple mentors that stay with them for 3 years, right? The second is 3 years of after-school college readiness stuff. So not to traumatize you or any of the listeners or the viewers, but thinking back to what it was like in 11th or 12th grade of high school, like life was hard as it is, and then to apply to college, SATs and interviews and financial aid and transcripts and essays, short and long, and interview.
I'm getting flashbacks of
right?
horrible memories right now.
And I live this, Alex. This is my life, right? But all these things that even if you're coming from a family that has means or privilege, right? It's a lot. It's like a whole different class or 2 classes. And if you're one of our students and you don't have anyone in your community or in your family who has done this before, to be like, Mom, I need help filling out a FAFSA. Like, what's a FAFSA? How do I fill out a FAFSA form? It's more complicated than tax forms in most cases, right? Yeah. So just those sorts of things. We work with our students 10th, 11th, 12th grade every Monday night after school for about 2.5 hours to build skills in all of those different things. The leadership, identity development, college and career exploration, writing, critical thinking, public speaking, communications, community building, all those things we work with our students, and the mentors are there to share their experience because they've done it before, right? So that's the second thing. So the first is the mentoring. The second is the after-school college readiness programming. And to be clear, this isn't tutoring. We're not helping the kids with calculus homework, right? This is just what are the things we're assuming that you're doing good in school because you have high GPAs and you're academically qualified. We're here to help you with all the other stuff, right? And then the third thing is, and I love this, is we pay for our students. Many of our students have never been on a college campus before. We pay for our students the summers after 10th and 11th grade to go onto college campuses, live in the dorms, eat in the dining halls, and take college classes anywhere in the country. So our students are doing this at CSU, at CU Denver, CU Boulder, but they're also doing it at Harvard and at Stanford and at Johns Hopkins and Georgetown. And all of this, the mentoring, the after-school programming, the SAT, all that stuff, and the summer programs is 0 cost to our students, 0 cost to their families, 0 cost to their schools.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm so in love with this program. I'm like already working out. I'm like, I could probably do this. I could probably be a mentor.
You absolutely could. I mean, if you've gone through the college experience and if you're willing to make the commitment, those are the 2 hardest things to clear. And the amazing thing, I got to go to the punchline, Anthony.
Yeah.
The amazing thing is with those 3 things, the mentoring, the after-school programming, and the summer programs, we have 100% success. So 100% of our kids get into 4-year colleges or universities, and 100% earn scholarships. That's been the case for 120 students that we've served in Denver in the last 14 years, and will continue to be the case as we grow to serve more kids across the state.
That's really remarkable. I mean, 100%. You don't hear that number thrown out because it's easy to get that caveat and that one person that slips through the cracks.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that is so remarkable about the program and what you've been able to do with it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And one of the things that Anthony knows about me is that I came from the private sector, and for me, it's really important to have key performance indicators. Return on investment. What are the measures of our success? And traditional nonprofits, it's really hard to find what is my impact? What is the ROI? If I'm giving $1,000, what am I getting out of it? Yeah. And one of the things that really draws me to Minds Matter is we're really clear on our objective metrics of success, and we are 100% of them. Yeah. Right? It's pretty awesome.
It's phenomenal. Talk to us. I think I want to tie this into the business community because I think that's the transition, and talk a little bit about how this. I don't know if you have any stories about the students that have gone on to college and then gone on to do something that's really cool.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about that impact that the program has. You get them there, you get them into school. What next? What have the results been?
Totally. Actually, I always think about this. I'm so lucky to be running Minds Matter here in Denver and in Colorado because it's such a booming business community, as we know. And there's so much growth and there's so much population growth that's coming to Colorado because of the high available levels of employment, a bunch of different professions and industries that are represented. And if I can go into this little thing, I have this little kind of a diatribe in terms of a problem that we're trying to solve at Minds Matter, right? So we can look at it as it's really great that we're serving low-income high school kids and we're helping them get into college. But I'm also thinking about it from the business perspective. I have an MBA, and if I'm the businesses downtown, right, there's a talent deficit. We know about, you might have heard of the Colorado paradox. There's different ways to frame it, but one of them is they say by 2020 that 3/4 of our jobs are going to need higher education degrees, a bachelor's degree or further. 3/4 of those jobs. Right now, across Colorado, we are on track to graduate 1 out of 4 kids, so 25% of those kids.
From high school?
From high school with bachelor's degrees, right? So the kids who are in high school right now, 25% of them will get bachelor's degrees or further. So there's this huge gap of we don't have local talent that's going to be ready to fill the jobs that this booming economy needs.
Yes.
And so that's I call that the talent deficit. And the way we're funding that talent deficit is through talent debt. So we are borrowing talent from New York and Boston and Los Angeles and San Francisco. We're paying high rates for relocation, recruitment costs. Coming here, cost of living increases concordant with what you were making in New York or Boston, right, to come here to Denver. That's leading to inflation, that's leading to housing prices, that's leading to traffic on I-25, that's leading to prices for ski passes, right, going up. And there's no guarantee that people are going to stay here for 5-10 years, right? This is short-term debt. Like, people might come for 3 to 5 years. Colorado is such a great place to live, but that may change once the prices get up to where they are, right? Once it gets a little bit too crowded, people might go back to the coasts.
Yeah.
So we're funding this talent deficit with debt. The way I think about it is we have all of this equity around this state. We have all of these kids who are essentially just the spare change in our couches and in our pillows, or the savings account that's got $200 here, $500 here. If we were to pool those resources and actually leverage the equity that we have here, the assets, the talent assets that we have in Colorado, we wouldn't have to worry about this problem. And so the way I look at it from Minds Matters perspective is that's what we do, right? We go find the spare change, we invest in them, and we make sure that they're going to deliver that return on investment. So 80% of our kids stay in state, and most of them are local, and they're going to stay local. And so they come back to the communities that they came from, and they're working here. And so we have students. There's actually a student, Dunya, who was a couple years before April was a mentor. But she, her 2 mentors, one of them was an environmental engineer, one of them worked at KPMG in accounting. And Dunya loved math, and she heard about accounting. She's like, that sounds amazing. So she went to CSU, full ride to study accounting. And then came back and interned at KPMG.
How cool.
Listed Julia, her mentor, as a reference, and is now working full-time at KPMG. And Julia and her co-mentor, Jessica, were at Dunya's bedside when she had her baby. Like, that relationship continues. And now what we're doing is we're taking local talent and putting them in local organizations to fill that talent deficit. And that's, to me, like, that's the fun stuff.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's cool.
Awesome.
And it's what we need. I mean, what you're saying, I couldn't be more true. With unemployment at historically low levels right now, it's difficult to find good people, and that's what I hear more often than not. The people's biggest struggle. You can find some people, but finding good people that can do the jobs that we need, that's a different story.
Yeah. And is it sustainable to keep bringing in talent from out of town? And I say this as someone who's been in Denver, Colorado for 7 years, right? I'm not a local like the Lambatos is, right? I think I have nothing wrong with bringing in talent to fill that debt, right?
Sure.
Fill the deficit. But if that's the exclusive strategy that we're going after, right? Like,
And to your point, the sustainability.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big key. I talked to somebody the other day, and they said, they just moved here. And I said, what brought you to Denver? She said, housing prices. I said, you come from California? She said, yeah. I was like, okay. But there's very few states that you can point to say, like, you'd move to Denver for housing prices.
Totally.
Like, that's different than 5-10 years ago.
Totally.
That wasn't the case. And so
it absolutely wasn't.
interesting challenge that we're going to have to tackle.
And what happens to those 75% of kids who aren't getting their bachelor's degree, right?
Yeah.
So, like, where are they going to work? Where are they going to move to?
Where are they going to live?
Where are they going to live? How do we support them, right? Like, what is the infrastructure that we need, the social services that we need to support them? Like, it just seems like a very logical solution to a problem for me. And maybe I just oversimplify it, but that's why I love what I do.
You're doing your part.
People need it oversimplified sometimes.
I'll take it.
So let's talk a little bit about if we can develop this great talent.
Yeah.
Organizations have to set themselves apart, right?
Yeah.
And they're, why work for me and not the guy across the street?
Yeah.
Being in the private sector, seeing, students go through this process and, have opportunities. I'm curious to hear from your aspect. What do you think it takes to create a great place to work?
Yeah, this is where I ask you normally. I used to take you or April out to coffee, and I'm like, tell me how to do this, Anthony. So I feel kind of weird telling you what it takes to make a great place to work. But I think if I can use Footers as an example, we've worked with Footers for 6 or 7 years in Minds Matter. You guys have done a lot of our events, and we love working with Footers because it's just so clear, like the energy that comes out of anything that has the teal Footers Catering sign on the side of it, right, is just, it's tangible. And we'll talk about this probably more in the second segment. But for me, energy is such an important thing. And I think energy comes out of authenticity. Energy comes from the intention that the leaders and the employees work with. And just Footers is just, you walk into Footers, even if no one's at the reception desk, you just feel the love, the positivity, the compassion, the joy that happens in that space, whether or not there's a Footers employee standing in that room with you. And to me, like, to be a little bit more, to be a little abstract about it, I think it's really about how do you create a place where people can bring their best energy and be their best selves, be fully authentic. I mean, I love that Footers took an idea that an employee had, which was like, can we go on vacation together? And you guys were like, are you crazy? You want to spend more time with us? But you went and you did it, right? You took their idea, you built it out into something sustainable, and then went a step further and subsidized it. And now you're saying, like, you get to be your authentic self. Like, Footers Heather isn't just Heather who comes in and puts on her chef outfit and, like, cooks, right? Footers Heather is also Heather in a bikini at a pool in Isla Mujeres, right? Like, this is just who we are. It's like being your best, purest, most authentic version of yourself. And Minds Matter is so small. I mean, Minds Matter's got 220 volunteers and only 2 paid staff, soon to be 3 in December. So
congrats, because you were the first.
I was the first. Yeah, I was the first. Did it as a volunteer for a long time, and now doing it full time. But it's something that I'm constantly thinking about as we build out our organization and as we start to grow and serve more kids. Our vision is by 2027 to serve every eligible kid in the state, corner to corner, Colorado. But as we grow, what's that going to look like? And it's really important to me to create a space where, like, we can be truly authentically ourselves. That doesn't mean be unprofessional, but it means like maybe like smoothing some of the edges at times, but it doesn't mean being a different person than who you are, right? And
totally agree.
That's really important. Employee number 2, one of the reasons why she chose our organization was because she had an 18-month-old child at home. And the way she saw my eyes light up, and I was like, can you bring her to the office? Can she hang out all the time?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's such an important part of her husband, her child. Like, that's so important to her to not have space for that in the place where we're going to be interacting consistently.
Yeah.
That there's so much love and joy and energy that brings to her, that brings with her, that for Shauna to have that space in our office, that's part of what we do. So we actually do now movie nights once every couple months where we'll have everyone bring in volunteers or whoever bring in their kids and their spouses, and we'll watch Moana or Coco on the big screen in our conference room.
Fun.
Just because I want that energy, that positivity everywhere we can.
That's awesome, and like you said, you're inviting people to come in as who they are. I've echoed that for many years, that I don't open the door and say, "Okay, I'm work Anthony now. It's time to to get to work and then leave." And like, if something's going wrong in personal lives, it's going to impact your ability to do effective work. And if things aren't going well at work, it's going to impact you on personal. So we need to throw out this idea that it's separate and just how do we approach the person as a whole? So I think that's awesome that you're doing that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to hear more. We're going to take a quick break here on Connect and Collaborate. In the meantime, check out the website. Where can I find?
MindsMatterDenver.org. MINDS, Matter, MATTER, Denver.org. We're actually due for a website refresh in the next week or so. So
perfect.
check,
All right.
check now, but also check in a week.
Yes, absolutely. Also, be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube channel while you're here. Find out more interviews with Anthony and the guests that he's brought me in the past at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. And look up Anthony Lambatos or Footers Catering, and you can find all of those episodes in one area together.
Some good stuff there.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we are talking with Anthony Lambatos from Footers Catering. And we're also talking with Savinay Chandrasekhar.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah.
A little smoother, too, Anthony.
Yes, exactly. I practiced it on the break there.
She had 24 minutes to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, Sav, you are with Minds Matter, and I'm enthralled with this organization already. On the break here, I was asking you 8,000 questions about it.
I love it.
And I know that one thing you wanted to go back and make sure we did cover, I wanted to talk to you about the financial aspects of it. I have a background in debt collecting, and I hate to tell people. I probably shouldn't admit that all over the internet, but here we are. And one of the things that was really devastating when I had that job was watching these 19-year-old kids essentially fall into debt. Because they didn't realize if they didn't complete school that they didn't have to pay these loans back. And they would get these $20,000 loans for $8,000 a year schooling, and they would live on it, and they didn't understand because the loan officers make money on it, and so that was why they were pushed into that. And again, you mentioned a lot of these students that you're with are first-generation college students. And so I wanted to see what kind of specific financial education you're giving these students.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge thing. And especially, again, like we talked earlier, if you don't have anyone who's done this before, you don't know how people are out to get you, right? If at worst, or what you don't know, right? And so it's important for us to make sure that our students have all that support. And that's a lot of what our after-school programming is. We have experts, people who've been doing this for 12, 14 years, who are working with our students every week in addition to the mentors to make sure that they understand financial aid and the traps and all the things that are available to them. An important thing I do want to bring up, though, is, so from my understanding, we're the first mentoring organization in the state, if not the country, to have a partnership that is pretty much unprecedented. So we have a partnership with the University of Colorado at Denver, and the incredible folks there, including Genya Herndon, who championed this. But the partnership says, essentially, Minds Matter, you're doing a really great job of finding the spare change, right? Finding these kids and curating them and preparing them for college. We know they're going to be awesome, and we want them on our campus. So CU Denver said, we're willing to make a commitment to guarantee conditional admissions to every single graduate of Minds Matter. So every student who graduates Minds Matter will get conditionally admitted to CU Denver, and they'll go a step further and beyond to say, and we will have financial aid counselors work personally with each of your students to make sure that they can avoid these sorts of traps, right? So they're going to make their best efforts to meet 100% of the financial need that of our students. So that's the partnership we have with CU Denver. It's incredible. It provides a guarantee, right? So we've had 100% success so far. That's going to continue because of this partnership with CU Denver. And thanks to the partnership with CU Denver, we're now negotiating similar partnerships with MSU Denver, Colorado State University System, Colorado College, CU Boulder, Colorado School of Mines, and others. So these are going to guarantee our success rates as we continue to try to serve every eligible kid in the state by 2027.
Right, and a degree from CU Denver is nothing to scoff at by any means. That's pretty high up there.
It's amazing that they, just the leverage and the power that our students get to have when they get to say, I can have a world-class education down the street from my house, be close to my parents and my family and my grandparents and my siblings, right? And I don't have to worry about funding it. That's CU Denver has done an incredible job of realizing the assets that our students are, and figuring out ways to make sure that they're served as well as they can be.
That's cool.
Yeah, super cool.
So you've made the transition from private sector.
Yeah.
And, I mentioned the Rocky Mountain Young Professional Summit, and the theme was, living with intention, wake up and take action. In Sav's presentation was phenomenal, talking about, finding your purpose and how you do that and how you go about that. Touch on some of the high level. I think it's such a cool story that you had from where you were to where you are now, but it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Right? So talk a little bit about the finding your purpose and what you had to go through to get there.
Yeah. So I was born in India, spent the first 6 years of my life in Saudi Arabia, and moved to the States. I'm an only child. My parents are lovely, wonderful people, if they're listening. And always, there was no question that I was going to go to college. And what was I going to do? Traditionally, in the Indian American community, right? It's doctor, engineer, and maybe a lawyer, right? Depending on how much of a dunce you are. And so it was always I was going to go to college, that was sure. And I remember the way I got into college was I took the U.S. News and World Rankings list and applied to the top 10 schools. And then the highest one that I got into was where I was going. Yeah, that's how it was. And so very different from how we work with our Minds Matter students, which I'll get back to in a second. And so I went to school for engineering, and I went and I studied engineering, and I realized I don't want to be an engineer. And this is a theme in my life. I go to school and pay a bunch of money to figure out what I don't want to do for the rest of my life. But when I was at the University of Pennsylvania in engineering, I started taking classes at Wharton, the business school, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I want to work in business. I also knew I didn't want to work on the East Coast anymore. I'd grown up in Southern California, and I wanted to come back as quickly as possible. So I came back to LA and worked at Boeing, an engineering company that would hire me, but then put me on the business side. So I got to work in the business side of Boeing with a little bit of my engineering skills for about 8 years. And I did a bunch of aerospace and defense stuff, working on rockets, working on landers that landed on Mars in 2012, working on high-tech computers for the Army. And the entire time, 99% of my life was amazing. So I lived 10 minutes from my parents without getting on the freeway, 10 minutes from work without getting on the freeway. In LA is absurd.
That's very important.
Yes,
actually.
Incredibly important. And I lived across the street from the beach with my best friend in an apartment that the rent for which was less than I've ever paid in rent in Denver.
Wow.
Pretty great life.
Yes.
Yeah. And 99% of my life was amazing, and 1% wasn't. And that 1% was just a lack of fulfillment. And I tried to drink all the alcohol and watch all the TV to just ignore that 1%, and it wouldn't go away. And then I realized that instead of trying to push that 1% away, I needed to sit in it a little bit more. And as I sat in it, I realized that I wanted something that was more fulfilling. The sort of concise way that I say it was I wanted to stop helping contribute to the destruction of the world, and I wanted to start contributing to the salvation of the world. And so I went to business school because I thought then, and I still think, that capitalism is one of the most powerful forces that we have in the global economy. And I wanted to figure out how to use business to eradicate poverty. It started coming clear to me in my trips back to India, and just around just seeing how inequitable it was that certain people were super poor, certain people were super rich, and a lot of that had nothing to do with their choices that they were made. But rather, as Warren Buffett calls, winning the ovarian lottery, right? Who your mom is decides a lot of what your outcomes are going to be. And that never felt okay for me. So I went to business school to figure out how to use business to eradicate poverty. And in my business school thesis, I realized that it wasn't business, it was education. So again, got another degree to figure out what I don't want to do the rest of my life. And then I realized that I wanted to start working in education. So I moved into education about 7 years ago. Never thought I'd be at a nonprofit. I never thought I'd be entrepreneurial. Never thought I'd be a CEO, but here I am.
It's an amazing story, and I applaud you for taking the steps toward that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, 99%, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people say 80%, 75% is okay,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to keep going through the motions.
Yeah.
Why is it important for people to break that? Why is that not okay on some level?
Yeah. Can I share the little thing, the rowing and the sailing thing? Yeah. So this analogy kind of popped up to me where like we've got this ocean that we're trying to cross. That is our career. That is our lives. Whatever. And we've been taught that the fastest way from one end of the ocean to the other is a straight line. And how do you get on a straight line? You row. Right? You get in your rowboat and you just row and row and row. And when the winds come and blow you, where the current shifts, you just put your head down and you row harder. And you row harder and you row harder. And then, but as you're going in this straight line, what seems like a straight line to you ends up going off course, right? And you're going to end up way further away, expending a bunch more effort and so far away from where you thought you were going to be. And so many people, I've just talked to so many people who feel like they're feeling like they're off course and they're like, I don't know what to do other than keep rowing.
But they double down.
Yeah,
and work harder.
just row harder.
Yeah.
And I think I realized very early on, that first of all, I'm lazy and I can't row that hard. And secondly, actually before I moved to Denver, I was living on a sailboat in Southern California, and I love the idea of sailing because sailing, what you'll find is actually to get across the ocean, sailing's probably the fastest way to do it. And what you're doing is you're using the wind and the currents to move you faster towards your goal. So it's really, there's sort of three elements there, right? The first is getting clear on what your North Star is, figuring out what your destination point is. And I think if I didn't listen to that 1%, I don't know that I would have found that North Star. And for me, my North Star now, and it can change, but my North Star is to promote equity and eradicate poverty through peace, love, and compassion. That's why I'm on the planet. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is when you're sailing, it's not a straight line. It's actually diagonal. You're going diagonal in a bunch of different angles that you can't control based on where the winds and where the currents are. But you're using that wind and that current to propel you further. And as long as you're making progress towards your North Star and you can calibrate towards it, then you're in the right direction. And I think that's important, right? Because, very, very much I'm a very linear thinker. And so a lot of people were telling me to make my 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year plan of where you want to be. And that just never made sense to me because something would pop up that I was like, I don't know why, but that really resonates, and it feels like it's going to get me closer to promoting equity and eradicating poverty through peace, love, and compassion. Let's go do it. And so, being able to resonate with that, I think, was really, really important. Calibrating to the North Star, but then also taking the winds and the currents wherever they're going. And then the third thing that I think is really important there is letting go, right? It's this letting go of attachment to thinking that I'm so smart that I can figure out all the things that are unexpected that are going to hit me, and then have contingency plans for all of them to get so I can get on this straight line to where I'm trying to go.
Yeah, what if?
Right?
What if this happens? What if that happens?
And I think there's definitely value in planning. I'm not saying don't plan, but I think it's our attachment to the plan. It's our attachment to how things are supposed to go.
Right.
That when they don't go that way, because there's 7.2 billion other people on the planet, and there's weather changes and butterflies flapping their wings in China. When things don't go that way, we get really frustrated and we have so much suffering because of that, right?
Yeah.
And so letting go to, I don't know how this is going to get me there, but I know that's where I'm heading, and if it doesn't feel right, then I'll do something different, right?
Yeah.
Is huge.
It's so spot on. One of my favorite things is that I heard another saying, worry is nothing more than negative forecasting. And yet we worry so much about all these things that the probability of them happening are so slim, but just the possibility keeps us from even going in that direction.
Absolutely.
And like you said, if you go and it doesn't feel right, you move. You go a different way. Hey, let's tack a little bit this way, or let's tack this way, and get more in the direction we're going.
Right, and what ends up happening is, right, I look at Footers and I'm like, it just seems like success story after success story after. I know, because I've talked to you and I've talked to April, how many mistakes you made, how many unexpected things came up, right? And you can either worry about those and forecast those in advance and then freak out, or just not pay attention to them, right? But I think those are the things that propel you forward.
Yep.
There's so much learning to come out of those experiences, and so just owning it and being like, well, that didn't go the way I expected, right? But we're coming from a place of love, compassion, intention, positivity, joy. We're not going to let fear and anger or frustration be the energy that we're working out of, right? It's going to be how do we get forward?
Exactly. It's positive spin on it.
Yeah.
I love what you said about, when you're talking about your purpose, why I'm on the planet. I don't think people spend enough time really thinking about that.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it, highlighted a couple shows, like, what's your true genius? What do you bring to this world that is unique to you that no one else can do, or that you just have a little bit of a different angle that you can bring to it, and how do you continue to do more of that?
Yeah.
I know at Footers we've found that when people are in that spot, and this isn't saying that we have people that are committed to, my purpose is working at Footers for the rest of their lives,
right.
but when they can be in a spot where they feel they're contributing and they're working toward what's important to them, that's a powerful thing. But taking that next step, I mean, talk about what it takes to find and figure out what's your genius, what's your purpose, what are the steps people have to take to do that?
Yeah, so I've got this is where I told you we'd get into the spiritual hoodoo, but
I'm all in. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So there's the logical way, and the logical way I think will get you 80-90% of the way there, but it won't get you all the way there. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are listening to this, you can Google a Japanese concept called ikigai. I think that's how you pronounce it, Ikigai. And I think in Japanese it means reason for being. And there you'll see like some Venn diagrams, and I use that a lot with some of my friends or colleagues who are trying to figure out like what's my North Star, and it's this intersection of what am I really really good at,
mm-hmm.
what do I love doing, what does the world need or what fits my mission and my passion, and then what can I get paid for. And I think a lot of people very quickly get drawn to like what can I get paid for, and they look for the jobs first to figure out is this what I want to do, as opposed to like what do I want to do, and let's find the job.
Yep.
And I think it's so much easier once you get clarity on like this is exactly what I want to do. The jobs will pop up. They will. Mm-hmm. It's when you don't have clarity on like this is what I'm amazing at and this is what like feeds my soul and I want to go do this. When you don't have clarity on that, it's so hard for the people around you to find you the job because you don't know how can I find it for you, right? But I think doing some of that exercise and figuring out what is the intersection of these elements is super helpful. But I think, frankly, like one of the most important things that's been most impactful to my growth as a leader and as a human being is just the most powerful thing in my life is my meditation practice. Mm-hmm. And for me, meditation is about shutting my brain down.
Yeah.
And when I stop thinking, for those fleeting moments, most of the time when I'm meditating, I'm still thinking about my to-do list. But when those moments where I stop thinking, the purpose shines. The heart, spirit shines, the soul shines, and mm-hmm. It's those moments of glory where you're just like, stop trying to think your way out of the box. Right? There is no box, and it's all in here. And so, trying to figure out like what is my purpose is super helpful. Logically, but at some point you got to listen to the inside and be like, no, that feels right. I can't explain it. That feels right.
What's your heart saying?
Yep.
I loved what Julia said about meditation. That the hurdle for her was meditation's not about getting good at meditation. Meditation's about being better at life.
Yeah.
Right. And so finding that time. That seems so counterintuitive with our rat race of got to accomplish more, got to do more, got to maximize my time, got to every productivity minute I can have. I got my phone in my pocket, I can get something done. I got 2 minutes here. There's no short-term gain with meditation, right?
Yeah.
Or taking a step back or spending even time in thought.
Yeah.
I think is something that I know I personally have been struggling to try to do more of that.
Yeah.
Because I found when I do those sorts of things, take that time, I come back more recharged and I'm more effective. I'm more present with what I'm doing. But it's hard to explain to somebody on the outside who's looking at it as like you're wasting 15 minutes that you could be doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, but that's going to add 30 minutes of productivity over here.
That's exactly it, right? Like so many different ways to cut it, like in terms of mental recharging, like just training your focus, listening to your soul or your spirit. Like there's so many benefits to meditation. And even for me, it's hard to find time to do it, right? Yep. And so it's about not finding time, but it's about like putting the stakes in the ground. And if you look at my calendar, it looks like Skittles. Shauna, my coworker, says it just looks like Skittles because I have different colors for everything.
Yep.
But meditation are like the hard spots, right? These are the things.
And you schedule it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I was reading something about productivity and how we manage our calendar. So often is see white, fill it.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Like I look like, oh, I got space there. Fill it.
Yeah.
Fill it. But we don't fill it with like, hey, I got to check my email.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spend 2 hours or 1 hour checking my email.
Yes.
And I'm going to spend 1 hour meditating. And
I do that,
all of a sudden when you do that, that filling of the calendar is optimal to, awesome performance.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'm going to keep harping on it, but I think it's, I think about, Tim Ferriss.
4-hour work week.
Yeah, 4-hour work
it.
week. And I don't remember what the book is that he just wrote, but one of the things he's talking about is like, what is the thing that I can invest, or no, this was actually The One Thing by Gary Keller, where he's like, what is the thing that I can invest time in now that will make tomorrow and the rest of my life easier?
Yes.
And meditation is that thing. Meditation, self-care, exercise, eating well, like those are the things that if I invest now, it makes everything easier. The tough moments, the glorious moments, everything. And too often we get caught up in like, what's going to make this next minute easier? What's going to make this like, whatever stress or anxiety, get off my shoulders. But taking the time to be like, no, I've got a big thing to prepare in an hour. I'm going to take 30 minutes to meditate and then 30 minutes to do as well as I can.
Right.
I've found that to be to pay dividends over and over and over.
Yeah. One of the things that I found, because I'm starting to try to get onto this meditation route for sure. What I started doing was waking up about 15 minutes earlier. And I know that sounds tough for a lot of people. If you're not a morning person already, that's a really tough thing to incorporate.
Yeah.
But I wake up 15 minutes earlier and my phone is off. It's not so much I go sit on a floor and I cross my legs and make a big deal about it.
It's not.
I start off by saying some of the things that I'm excited about for the day.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
it's something small, but it's mine.
Yeah.
And it starts me off in the right place. Like, you know what? I'm super pumped that I have a job to go to today.
Totally.
I'm really excited that I get to see my niece this evening, right?
Yeah.
Those little things that make a difference for your day. And so mine happened to be in the morning because I am a morning person, sadly.
Yeah.
I discovered at 30, I love mornings.
took me about that long time. Too.
Exactly. But some people, my sister, she's very much, once she gets off work, she needs that time to decompress. And so she takes a little bit of a longer route home, right? So she'll meditate while driving, depending on your practice.
Yeah.
Not the safest, but but you can get there. It's small steps.
Yeah.
Turning the radio off and just being
Present.
You can get it.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great point, Alex. I think we make such a big deal out of meditation. Like it's a thing that involves a cushion and cross-legged and the candles and the bells and right. And like I do that too, right? I've got my little nook where if I've got an hour and I'm gonna go sit down and meditate, I'll go do it. But like, I mean, you saw me before this, like I was just in the room alone and I closed my eyes and I started focusing on my breath. The beautiful thing about meditation is your mind and your breath go with you everywhere, all day, every day. I pay attention in meetings sometimes, in those few seconds where I'm like, I don't need to pull out my phone, when I'm at a stoplight, right, turning off the radio. There are all these moments for us to just reset and be present, and turn off all the chatter. And so meditation to me doesn't have to be this big, huge thing that takes hours and hours every day. There's value in doing that for sure. But like, it's even better than going for a run because you don't have to change clothes.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
So.
Well, and bringing this back, I think for those listening that are struggling with, that resonate with that 99% or 80% and look at their life and say, everything's going really well, but there's this piece that's missing. These are some of the tips and some of the things that I think can really help people get to that next level.
Yeah.
What talk about any suggestions you have, especially for people, younger people. You work with them all the time. They're starting in their careers. What do you tell them in terms of getting them on this path earlier, rather than somebody that's been in the workforce for 20 years and trying to figure it out?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I tell people is don't run away from something, run towards something. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think a lot of times I did this, right? Like I got into a job where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And then tried to find out what was next. But really figuring out what is it that brings you joy, what brings you love. Like for you, it was like coaching and developing people, building a team. Like that's what brings you joy. Yep. And a catering company is your medium for doing it, right? But that's what brings you joy. And that's why Footers is as incredible as it is because that's how you and April operate, right? You found what you love, and it wasn't where you thought it was going to be. You didn't end up becoming Coach K and a basketball coach, right? But,
correct.
But you found what you loved and you ran towards it, right? I found my North Star, promoting equity, eradicating poverty through peace, love, and compassion, and I'm running towards it. And so it goes back to the North Star. What resonates? What brings you joy? What where do you feel your heart bursting? do more of that, and the opportunities will pop up.
That's cool.
I love that. Thank you so much. This has been really enlightening. And again, I need people to check out mindsmatterdenver.org.
Yeah.
Yes, if you want to be a mentor, if you want to support the organization, there's tons of opportunities to get involved. I'm speaking for you now, Sav.
Please do.
But I
Please
just
do.
know from how great of an organization it is, and working with you, we love what you guys do, and been proud supporters of the organization. And on top of that, I have so much respect for you, and can't tell you how much I appreciate you joining the show today.
Yeah, likewise. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me
Yes,
on.
thank you both for joining me on Connect and Collaborate. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. And check out this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. Have a wonderful day, you guys.
Thank you, and happy
Thanks, Alex.
Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Yes.